Hello, good people. This is your guy, Mr. Educator, Mr. Communicator, Mr. Free Thinker, coming back at you live once again from the Lone Star State with another edition of the Media Might Speaks. All right, good people. This is, I think, one of my second videos dealing with the military, but this is something that really surprised me that was sent to me by one of my subscribers regarding the military and domestic violence. Now, we know domestic violence is a serious thing, and it goes both ways, man on woman, woman on man. But we all know that the man on woman thing gets the most attention. So, anyway, we're going to talk about domestic violence in the military. Even though most likely it goes on. I used to be in the military. Trust me, I used to be a cop in the military. So yes, I responded to many of domestic violence calls. But we're going to talk about the fact that what goes on in the military does not always translate into civilian life. So even though they're supposed to mirror one another, meaning that what you do in the military you can also do in civilian life. Like they kind of mirror the occupations. So you could be an engineer in the military and transfer over into civilian life in the same MOS, military occupational specialty, as they say in the Army. So, okay, let's get to this. Now, disarming troops accused of domestic violence. Now, police could take guns from troops accused of domestic violence under this new proposed law. So, let's talk about this, good people. Civilian courts and police could confiscate the firearms of service members accused of domestic violence by military authorities under a proposed law being considered by Congress. Now, what worries me is the word accused. Now, we don't need accused. What we do need is a conviction. Not actually a charge, but a conviction. When you use the word accused, that means anyone can be accused, and that's not what we want here. I'm hoping they're meaning a conviction. So let's continue, people. The proposal is a bid by House Democrat lawmakers to give more protection to military-connected victims who have been battered, assaulted, or stalked. But conservatives are putting up fierce opposition because they say it would infringe on troops' Second Amendment right to bear arms, which to a certain degree it would. And that is probably why the military stayed in-house, meaning they took care of its own. And it didn't get out. And we're going to talk about that toward the end, and you will hear what I'm talking about. Now, supporters are hoping to pass the measure into law this year as part of the annual defense policy bill. Its future remains uncertain because the Senate hasn't floated any similar domestic violence initiative as part of the bill, which must be negotiated and passed by both chambers. Now, it goes on to quote here, domestic violence is a forgotten crisis in the military, and that's why I offered in NDAA a National Defense Authorization Act amendment to ensure that service members have access to military court protective orders that are as strong and enforceable as protective orders issued by civilian courts. Now, Jackie Speyer, a Democrat from California who chairs the House Armed Services Committee, Personal Subcommittee, said in a written statement to military.com. Okay, so what they're saying is, even though you can file a protective order through the UCMJ, the military court, but it only is as good as you are on the military post or base, which we're going to talk about. If you go outside of that, you're no longer, well, it's invalid. So I guess you just stay on the post. Make sure your significant other doesn't follow you off the military installation. Now, right now, military commanders can issue protective orders requiring a service member to stay away from an alleged victim of domestic violence or related crimes such as stalking and temporarily confiscate their firearms if they are on a military installation. Well, I can see the problem here because they may, how you going to do that? That's kind of tough. Well, you're going to monitor when they go eat because you may have maybe only one or two mess halls, probably cafeterias, maybe one main one. So one PX, one commissary, I don't know, where you go shopping and then you may run into them. So you may have an issue here with the Air Force SPs or Army MPs. Now, because those orders aren't issued by a court, civilian law enforcement agencies won't enforce them, and commanders have no authority to seize guns from troops off the base or the post. Okay, true. Because who wants to be cooped up on a installation all day and night? That means if a victim wants protection from their abuser outside of a military base, they have to go through the separate process of obtaining a civilian protective order, which advocates say puts victims through unnecessary trauma and potentially leaves them open to further abuse. Now, the only issue I have with this, good people, is that what is the problem of you going to civilian court and taking care of that? I'm pretty sure you have the support staff on a post or base that would help you do that. I know it can be a little tedious, but hey, the JAG Corps, the Judge Advocate General, they should be able to make that transition. They should. But, okay, I guess it's maybe too much work. I don't know. Now, to address the gap between military and civilian laws, a provision in the House version of the NDAA creates a system for military courts to issue protective orders for victims of domestic violence, stalking, sexual assault, and related crimes. Military court protective orders will be fully recognized by state and local law enforcement under the proposed law sponsored by SPEAR. The subject of the order would also be restricted from possessing, receiving, otherwise accessing a firearm while the order is in effect. Okay, that's what we're trying to do. If it goes into effect on the post or base, it will go automatically go into effect off post or base. So, okay, we see that because nobody wants to go over there and do the paperwork. It's not stripping service members of the Second Amendment rights, he said. If you got a domestic issue that's gone as far as the courts, it's probably a pretty serious issue. If somebody's applying a restraining order, they're telling that individual to cease and desist. I personally have no issue with that, unquote. Okay, now in July, the independent commission created by Defense Secretary Lord Austin recommended creating protective orders issued by military judges versus those issued by commanders now as part of an effort to finally reduce the number of sexual assaults in the military. Forcing alleged victims to apply for both military and civilian protective orders is overly burdensome and duplicative and presents a clear safety risk, the commission said in its July report. That's what I was saying. They don't want to... I really don't see the problem with that. It should be some type of joint effort. It should be. But I guess they want to just go ahead and merge two together, which we'll talk about. Now, the proposal is similar to so-called red flag laws that exist in 19 states and the District of Columbia. The laws allow police or family members to petition a court to take away the guns of someone who may be a danger to themselves or others, yet dealing with potential suicide. In a separate letter to fellow lawmakers last month, Representative Chip Roy of Texas took particular issue with parts of the measure that would allow a military court to expedite a protective order in an emergency, saying it violates rights to fair treatment under the law. He says Congress should not allow servicemen who are faced with allegations to have their firearms taken away first and face due process later, Roy wrote in the letter. That's what I was saying earlier. We're going to need more than this. See, we don't need speculation. We don't need circumstantial. So I was saying that just a mere accusation, we're going to need more than that. Now, I'm not saying that domestic violence is not serious. It is. But come on now, we all know how people can falsely accuse people. Now, the bill text says an emergency order could be issued on an ex parte basis, meaning without all parties present in court. The court would then have to give the subject of the order up to 30 days to respond. Okay, that's good. Give the party that's being accused 30 days to respond to defend him or herself. Now, a White House statement this week about the Senate NDAA urged lawmakers to enable military protective orders, MPOs, to be given full faith and credit. Now, SPEAR vowed to continue fighting for the provision during negotiations over the final bill, so that service members who are the target of intimate partner violence are not treated like second-class citizens when it comes to protective orders, unquote. I get you there. Well, good people, I've been out of the military for about 10 years. And when I was in, we only dealt with issues on post or base, as it's sometimes called, depending on what branch you're in. I mean, yeah, to expedite the process, the military protective order should cross over or be combined or recognized through civilian courts. But I do know that domestic violence is a very serious charge. And yes, if convicted, you could lose your right to bear arms. But I see where they're going with this. I do. You see, good people, if a soldier, airman, marine, or seaman gets involved in a domestic dispute and a military protective order is filed, then if that airman, soldier, marine, or seaman gets out general or honorably discharged, then the way this is now, the civilian world would never know it. It's a clean slate. What happened on the post or base. That's military stuff. So I have no charge on my record at all from a civilian standpoint. Now, with this new proposal, this would be on your record, both military and civilian. So military personnel would have to be on their best behavior. All right, good people, sad to say, but that's it for today. And remember, if you have a bad day, just remember what you learned in kindergarten. Keep your hands to yourself, and hopefully you can be okay. Until next time, this is your guy, Mr. Educator, Mr. Communicator, Mr. Free Thinker. Subscribe, share, and like to keep me rocking on the mic. Have a good night.